The drive for success often masks a structural deficit in how high achievers relate to themselves. Many professionals spend decades architecting impressive careers only to discover that the structure feels hollow once they reach the summit. This disconnect stems from a lifelong conditioning that satisfaction is a byproduct of performance rather than a result of internal connection. When approval is tied to specific outcomes, individuals learn to base their inherent value on achievement. This performance-based identity often begins early in life when maternal or educational regard is made conditional on success. These environments intensify a sense of worth that is contingent on results, which prevents the development of stable self-acceptance. The resulting emotional depletion indicates that the foundation of a fulfilling life is missing. Burnout is more than a simple state of being busy or tired. It is a recognized syndrome resulting from chronic stress that hollows out an individual, leading to energy depletion, mental distance, and a profound sense of detachment. Outwardly successful work patterns frequently coexist with severe exhaustion and depersonalization. Professional roles and high-level titles do not reliably protect against this depletion, as the weight of chronic stress eventually erodes the capacity to function. Choosing to cultivate a healthy internal relationship is a strategic requirement for a resilient and purposeful life. It is not an act of indulgence or a surface-level fix like taking a bath. Healthy self-regard acts as a protective resource that enables adaptive coping and high-level psychological well-being. By treating internal resonance as the groundwork for performance, you move away from performative effort and toward a sustainable architecture of success. Resilience lasts when it is built from the inside out, allowing for professional impact that does not require personal destruction. Internal resonance as a source of emotional stability. Establishing a foundation of self-worth recalibrates how you engage with the world around you. When you internalize your value, you no longer rely on a constant stream of external validation to justify your position or your efforts. Self-compassion provides a stable feeling of self-worth that is far less contingent on specific outcomes than global self-esteem. This shift suggests a less approval-dependent basis for your identity. A kinder inner stance directly moderates the effects of contingent self-esteem on your well-being, effectively reducing your reliance on fragile, validation-based worth. High levels of self-acceptance also weaken the link between perceived judgment from others and symptoms of anxiety or depression. By reducing your dependence on the approval of others, you build a more secure emotional foundation that remains intact even during professional fluctuations. Emotional regulation improves significantly because your inner world becomes a safer and kinder environment for processing stress. Cultivating a supportive internal response is linked to a measurable decrease in emotion dysregulation. For high-stakes professionals, shifting toward a kinder inner response improves emotional handling even under extreme strain. This transition supports more adaptive strategies, such as cognitive reappraisal, which allows you to interpret challenges without falling into a state of panic or avoidance. When your internal climate is resilient, you are less likely to suppress your emotions, leading to a more authentic and sustainable leadership presence. Stress feels less overwhelming when you stop viewing the natural need for resource replenishment as a personal failure. Managing high demands becomes easier when professional strain is met with care instead of self-coldness. For those in demanding roles, this internal stance functions as a critical protective resource that prevents the hollowing out effect of burnout. A supportive inner relationship even reduces the fatigue associated with self-regulation, making it easier to navigate uncertainty without total exhaustion. By removing the self-judgment often attached to the need for rest, you preserve your capacity and ensure that your output remains reliable and high quality over the long term. Internal resonance fuels relational integrity. The way a leader relates to themselves serves as a diagnostic for how they engage with others. Those who cultivate high levels of self-compassion are described by their partners as more caring and supportive, as well as less controlling or verbally aggressive. This suggests that a healthier internal relationship is directly reflected in more constructive family, friendship, and romantic functioning. When you move away from a self-critical stance, you improve your capacity for constructive conflict and the repair of transgressions. This internal shift also predicts greater subjective authenticity, indicating that treating yourself with kindness is the prerequisite for showing up genuinely in your social and professional life. Establishing a foundation of self-respect allows for clearer boundaries and more authentic connection. Healthy and flexible relational boundaries are essential for maintaining self-compassion. as they ensure better interpersonal differentiation rather than overextension. This prevents the hollowing out that occurs when a leader feels fused with the needs of others at the expense of their own capacity. Relationship authenticity is a distinct strength that predicts higher satisfaction independently of how much one chooses to disclose. When you operate from a place of internal resonance, your connections become more genuine because they are rooted in autonomy and social support rather than a performative need for approval. Maintaining this internal connection ensures that you can give from a state of abundance rather than obligation or burnout. Caring for yourself does not undermine your ability to care for others. Instead, it functions as a critical resilience factor that sustains long-term contribution. For professionals in high-stress roles, such as healthcare or social services, self-directed compassion reduces the risk of exhaustion and secondary traumatic stress. Prioritizing resource replenishment leads to higher compassion satisfaction, which is the fulfillment derived from being able to help others effectively. By refusing to operate from a state of chronic depletion, you architect a life where your service to others is sustainable, impactful, and rooted in personal integrity. Purposeful action over performative effort. High achievers frequently mistake constant productivity for inherent self-worth. When worth is tied strictly to performance, striving becomes a mechanism for self-worth maintenance rather than a vehicle for healthy effort. This creates a cycle where academic and professional goals are organized around protecting one's identity from the perceived threat of failure. Basing self-worth on external domains like financial success or professional status leads to increased stress, anxiety, and a significant loss of autonomy. In these environments, every task feels like a high-stakes social comparison, making professional striving more pressured and far less self-directed. Cultivating the foundation of self-love allows for aligned action rather than performative effort. Self-compassion is directly associated with mastery goals, where the focus remains on learning and growth rather than merely looking impressive. A kinder internal relationship reduces the fear of failure and improves perceived competence, which allows for more self-determined motives. Instead of taking action out of a sense of obligation or external pressure, individuals with high self-connection demonstrates behavioral alignment with their own values. This framework of awareness and acceptance ensures that professional output is a reflection of internal integrity rather than a disconnected display for others. Focusing on what truly matters ensures that the foundation of a fulfilling life remains stable over time. Goals centered on inherent value lead to deeper engagement, better conceptual learning, and higher persistence than those centered on image or external payoffs. When you frame your objectives around intrinsic meaning, you experience greater task involvement and more consistent motivation. Pursuing goals that match your intrinsic values, such as self-transcendence or openness to change, leads to significantly higher well-being. By prioritizing these authentic pursuits over goals that merely signal status, you architect a career that is both impactful and personally sustainable. Internal architecture and resilience through setbacks. A professional setback or imperfection does not destroy your foundation when your inherent worth is not at stake. Many high achievers experience intense psychological instability during failure because they tie their value to specific outcomes or external approval. Developing a self-compassionate mindset provides a more stable form of self-worth that is less contingent on these performance metrics. This internal stance acts as a buffer against the harmful effects of fragile, outcome-based esteem. When you respond to yourself with kindness rather than making a negative result a verdict on your character, the emotional impact of social stress and professional rejection significantly decreases. You bounce back faster from difficulties when you refuse to internalize the struggle as a permanent part of your identity. Job seekers and professionals who maintain a compassionate relationship with themselves experience less negative affect and more positive engagement during periods of lack of progress. This prevents a state of self-shutdown and encourages continued exploration despite setbacks. Instead of over-identifying with a failure or absorbing it into your self-concept, you maintain the capacity for adaptive, emotion-focused coping. This pattern allows you to regulate your response and re-engage with your goals rather than withdrawing into avoidance or defeat. True confidence is rooted in the certainty that you will support yourself regardless of the external environment. This form of self-assurance is less fragile and less dependent on constant confirmation from others, because it relies on more stable internal feelings of worth. High self-compassion relates directly to lower fear of failure and greater perceived competence, which shifts your focus toward mastery rather than performative display. This grounded confidence reduces rumination, public self-consciousness, and anger when mistakes occur. By establishing this caring relationship as your psychological base, you architect a resilient professional life that can withstand the volatility of high-stakes leadership. Sustainable joy through internal alignment. Fulfillment in the life of a high achiever depends on presence and alignment rather than the mere accumulation of large goals. While external wins provide temporary satisfaction, a more authentic and durable form of happiness is grounded in a deep sense of meaning and self-connection. This connection is defined by a combination of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and behavior that remains aligned with that awareness. Situations that prioritize meaning and purpose lead to greater authentic living, proving that true fulfillment is found in ordinary moments that feel true to one's internal values. When you treat your relationship with yourself as a priority, you establish a steadier emotional state that is not entirely dependent on the next professional milestone. A healthy internal relationship allows you to enjoy positive experiences without the interference of guilt or self-judgment. Many professionals struggle to savor their successes because they are already focused on the next demand or feel they have not done enough to earn rest. However, those who treat themselves with kindness are better able to take in good experiences rather than dampening them with internal criticism. Reducing self-judgment through a more supportive inner stance creates the necessary room for emotional recovery, full experience of positive emotions. Being present and intentionally savoring the moment interact to improve psychological health and daily well-being, turning enjoyment into a functional part of your operational capacity. Joy becomes a sustainable practice rather than a rare reward for exhaustive effort. Positive emotional states, such as gratitude and autonomy, can be intentionally cultivated through regular practice rather than passively awaited. Integrating mindfulness with a supportive inner response enhances both immediate pleasure and long-term well-being. This intentional cultivation ensures that gains in psychological health are maintained over time, even in ending seasons. When you experience enjoyment during these practices, it naturally reinforces the habit of self-care and continued engagement. By treating joy as a professional and personal discipline, you architect a life where well-being is an ongoing reality rather than a distant destination. Cultivating internal resilience today. The architectural shift toward a sustainable life begins with the simple awareness of how you speak to yourself during quiet moments. High achievers often operate on a subconscious track of critical self-talk that goes unnoticed until they intentionally practice self-compassion skills. Noticing these painful thoughts without over-identifying with them provides a practical starting point for building a kinder inner stance. Shifting your inner dialogue toward non-judgmental self-guidance acts as a meaningful change process, allowing you to recognize when your internal climate has become erosive. This diagnostic awareness is the first step in moving from a state of performance-based exhaustion to one of internal resonance. Building a consistent habit of self-connection does not require an overhaul of your daily schedule. Instead, it starts with choosing one daily act of kindness toward yourself. Very small daily micro-practices, such as a few seconds of self-compassionate touch, are associated with measurable increases in self-compassion and reductions in stress. Simple, repeatable behaviors, soothing breathing, or supportive touch, offer immediate calming and self-regulation benefits, even under pressure. By integrating these informal practices into your real life, you translate the concept of self-worth into a concrete behavioral reality that supports your operational capacity. Self-connection is an intentional action rather than a feeling you must earn through further achievement. Waiting to feel worthy before practicing self-care is a flawed methodology that reinforces the cycle of burnout. Evidence-based training shows that self-compassion can be cultivated through deliberate exercises and informal practices regardless of your current emotional state. Engaging in these chosen behaviors provides physical and mental benefits even when the skills feel unfamiliar or forced at first. By treating internal support as a professional protocol rather than a reward for productivity, you instill agency and architect a foundation of a fulfilling life that remains stable through every season of your career. The internal architecture of lasting impact. Architecting a life of profound influence requires a shift in how you view the foundation of your daily operations. True success is not a final destination reached through exhaustive performance, but a continuous state of internal resonance and alignment. When you treat self-connection as a non-negotiable professional priority rather than a distant reward for productivity, you move away from a fragile, performance-based identity. This internal integrity provides the necessary stability to face high-pressure environments without eroding your inherent worth. By recognizing that fulfillment starts within, you ensure that your professional output remains reliable and your personal joy sustainable regardless of external volatility. This transformation from a state of being hollowed out to one of empowered agency is the primary work of the impact leader. Choosing to instill this self-sufficiency allows you to lead with a sense of renewal and confidence that radiates through your relationships and your strategic decisions. As you begin to practice these principles and codify a personalized system for your capacity, you invite a future where your achievements and your well-being are synchronized. To continue this developmental arc and receive diagnostic insights for your leadership journey, I invite you to join our mailing list or register for an upcoming live masterclass where we recalibrate the strategies necessary for sustained high-level impact.